Minnesotans continue to skate on thin ice. A look at the problem at 10.
Good evening, I'm Hugh Downs.
And I'm Barbara Walters. And this is 2020.
On the ABC News Magazine, 2020 with Hugh Downs and Barbara Walters.
Tonight, men, women, and sex. AIDS is changing the way the game is played.
I'll do a lot for love, but I'm not ready to die for it.
Experts say an alternative is safe sex.
That's why guys gotta wear condoms, and girls gotta make sure guys wear them.
Safe sex, a battle cry for the AIDS generation, and more than just using condoms. Lynn Shure with what you need to know now that sex can kill you.
And the day New York stood still, a huge crane had toppled over.
Authorities report at least one person trapped under a piece of equipment at the site.
Incredibly, under the weight of 35 tons, a woman was found alive.
When I first saw her, in my own mind, I said, there's no way she's going to survive.
She bid her kids farewell, then waited for death. Tonight, Barbara tells how she cheated it. A moment of crisis, the woman under the crane.
Watch closely. You might see your favorite TV weatherman. It's how David Letterman got his start.
Well, let's take a look at the weather situation here in the state of Indiana.
Nice work if you can get it. So how do you? Hugh takes you inside the world of TV weather stars. It's not as easy as it looks. And now the weather.
For the fourth straight year, Volkswagen is the best-selling European car line in the U.S. The Volkswagen Golf is the best-selling car in all of Europe. And the Volkswagen Jetta is the best-selling European nameplate in the U.S. When you're hot, you're hot. That's why it's possible for your participating dealer to give you air conditioning at no extra charge. A savings of $740 on select Golf GLs and Jettas. See your Volkswagen dealer soon. Otherwise, you could be left out in the cold.
You'd hoped that this story would have a happy ending, but there is instead a tragic postscript. Bridget Gurney had begun to pick up the pieces of her life and had become very close to a Dr. Peter Rizzo, an orthopedic surgeon in New York. Her friends hoped that the relationship would lead to marriage. But last Thursday, just 1 week ago, Dr. Rizzo was shot in the head by a man with a history of mental problems. The doctor lapsed into a coma and died the next day. Sometimes there are things we just can't understand. We would like to offer Mrs. Gurney our deepest sympathy.
Yeah, I'd like to echo that sympathy and also hope that fate has now finished testing Miss Gurney. Thank you, Barbara. Well, later in the program, some are calling it the second sexual revolution. New attitudes because of AIDS. Lynn Shure with the rules for safe sex, now that sex can kill you. But next, I'll take you down through the years with TV's weather stars. We've got some surprises for you right after this.
This Maytag warehouse gives me the shivers.
Before you zip it up or pull it up, before you dress, caress. Caress with bath oil leaves your skin softer than soap can. Softer than anything that touches it. Before you dress, caress.
Breakfast in bed? Okay, what's the catch?
Just thought you'd enjoy the rich, buttery taste of shed spread country crock.
An offer I can't refuse.
One taste of country crock and she melts like butter.
Try rich, buttery shed spread country crock with fewer calories than regular margarine and no cholesterol.
Well, the boy genius. You trying to find out why Kentucky Fried Chicken is America's favorite chicken? Then pay attention, son. Folks just love going to the Colonel's because no one else makes chicken with that special blend of 11 herbs and spices. Any of this getting through to you, son? And of course, no one else's chicken is finger-licking good because nobody else knows the Colonel's secret formula. The secret formula! Kid's too smart for his own good.
Kentucky Fried Chicken, we do chicken right.
There are rare moments when a motion picture goes beyond mere entertainment to touch something special in the audience, goes beyond the passions of the headlines to become a part of our lives, a testament to the best in us all. America is such a motion picture. Witness the victory of the human spirit, the victory of America, Sunday.
In the early days of television, I had the chance to do just about everything, from announcing, hosting, reporting, commentary, everything except I never was a television weather person. And I think I figured out why recently. I wasn't pretty enough. Television has grown up over the years, and now to be a TV weather forecaster, you don't need to be a pretty face. You need personality. And if you just happen to be a meteorologist also, nobody's going to hold that against you.
Up on warm music.
They're presented as part of a news package, but actually they can be the biggest star of the team as they tout their credentials.
Meteorologist Don Novak has earned the American Meteorological Society seal of approval.
Go for the joke.
1,000. Ought to be finished by now. We can fry an egg in Tiger Stadium.
Or the outlandish.
In Columbia,
but eventually they all get down to business.
Just east of Boston, with snow to the west of...
The strength of a forecaster's appeal can help make a station #1 in local news.
Research has shown that the two areas in local news that most interest the audience are medical news and the weather. They do want to know how to dress for work the next day, how to dress their children, and how to plan for their weekends.
Talent agents such as Carol Cooper are sought out by stations because finding the right weather person is so important to them.
I think there are three things that you have to consider in weather. One is humor, one is warmth, and one is knowledge. And there's always going to be one of those three things that will be outstanding. The very warm person is your next door neighbor, the guy you trust, the guy you like, and he might have a little humor, but his warmth is the key. The meteorologist, on the other hand, particularly in cold climates with severe weather or farm areas where weather is real important, you might have a more serious meteorologist who will rely very little on humor.
Here in Los Angeles, where the average yearly temperature is 75 degrees and the rainfall just over 14 inches, there isn't a whole lot to be said about the weather. But while the climate is temperate, a TV weather person has to be hot, because the annual worth of each rating point on the early news is just under $2 million.
KABC TV, Los Angeles.
With so much at stake, the emphasis at the top three stations here is on personality, not meteorology. KNBC has a resident comedian, Fritz Coleman.
Fritz said it would rain. Fritz said it would rain.
At KCBS, Kevin O'Connell is your friendly next-door neighbor.
I have to tell you, in over 30 years, Minnie, you look younger than ever.
And the venerable institution of L.A. weather is Dr. George, a former science teacher. His Ph.D. is honorary, but his knowledge is hard-earned.
10% chance of light show. 10%? You know what that means? 90%. No rain at all. All right.
His combination of humor, warmth, and knowledge has made him the area's leading weather personality.
I am trying to convey information. You know who it affects the most, of course? Construction people, truck drivers, working people who have to work out in the weather, and they, to me, are the most serious viewers of all. And I live in fear of giving out misinformation. I still want to be el professor, the fellow who has the information and knows how to communicate one-on-one and present that information to them.
Along the Pacific coast, it's I can't see.
In the high-tech world of TV weather graphics, you have to learn to talk to a blank wall in order to communicate that information to an audience. One of the few trade schools with sophisticated equipment, the Specs Howard School of Broadcasting in Detroit, teaches this technique. Students are taught how to watch a monitor with a reverse mirror image of themselves projected over a map.
Here in Michigan, we have a...
Where do you go to get out of that? They must train the left hand to know what the right hand is doing, and at the same time ad-lib the information from the National Weather Service. Plus, they are supposed to make it look easy.
And now I'd like to take a look at the Michigan map, if I can. There we are, and I'm right in the middle of the whole state.
It wasn't always so complicated.
Hi there, how are you? Been waiting all day to see you.
In the early 50s, weather reports were separate 5-minute shows within the newscasts and gold mines for advertisers. Sex appeal found a home in the Weather Corner. The marriage of show business to science had begun. Carol Reed was one of the first weather girls. The forecast was committed to memory except for the readings. Little red markings that couldn't be seen on the black and white sets at home were chalked over during the broadcast. As long as the sales curves remained, so did the weather girls.
Good night, and have a happy.
The weather set soon became the new Schwab's drugstore, the place to be discovered. Raquel Welch, 1960 in San Diego. Diane Sawyer, 1967 in Louisville, Kentucky. And Mary Fran, who now stars opposite Bob Newhart, got what she calls her first acting job in 1963 in St. Louis.
The only requisite you had to have to be a weather girl was to absolutely know nothing about the weather and be blonde. I used to race outside and look at the weather and race back in. And we would be going on the air live and they would be counting it down. 5, 4, 3. I would zoom in and I would say, folks, it's raining. What can I tell you?
Since the era of the weather girls, Shirley Barish has matched the right person to the right station.
Yeah, in 25 years, you've represented a lot of people. I understand even Pat Sajak's tape came across your desk.
Oh, yes, and unfortunately, I couldn't get him arrested.
High pressure will hold. We can
Starting with the host of the Wheel of Fortune, we asked Shirley to use her expertise and look at tapes that we brought her of some very familiar faces.
And this is his gimmick.
Hello. How are you? Nice to see you. Realize under the laws of Tennessee, we are now legally married, young lady.
If I had had this tape, I would have found him probably more placeable than with the tape I had.
So now, Suzanne Summers, this, of course, was an audition tape.
The warmest part of the country today was Miami Beach, Florida, with suntan temperatures of 96 degrees. That's really hot.
Unfortunately, I would probably write her a sorry letter and tell her to go to a small market and get a couple of years under her belt and then send me another tape.
You're not going to believe this. David Letterman.
Well, let's take a look at the weather situation here in the state of Indiana. Nothing is going to happen to us as far as weather is concerned. It's going to be just like it was yesterday. And just like
I like his presentation a lot.
Tomorrow and again on Tuesday because nothing's going on. You look at him.
He's telling you there's nothing happening in the weather scene, and why bother to do it? And I love it.
And I think you'll see that once again we've fallen to the prey of political dirty dealings. And right now you can see what I'm talking about. The higher-ups have removed the border between Indiana and Ohio, making it one giant state. Personally, I'm against it.
Oh, I love it.
One giant state.
I wish he'd have stayed in weather.
If he had, maybe he'd be doing the Today Show. But they found another unique talent, Willard Scott.
We all will be someday. Dixie chill, 32 degrees. This is for tomorrow.
I'm not a weather person. I'm not a meteorologist. I'm really almost hardly a weather reporter. I'm a performer. I'm an entertainer. I'm a public relations man, and I've never made any bones about that. One of the things I think the Weather Service has always loved and adored me for is I give them credit for everything.
The Weather Service. There wouldn't be a TV forecast without it.
I think what we're looking at here is another storm coming through the northeast now.
How the National Weather Service in Washington makes its predictions is based on a recipe that's part science,
500 millibar heights are rising in that
part
area.
interpretation.
So I think we should bring the snow area further south. How about through northern Pennsylvania?
And a little guesswork.
What about New York City?
New York City be touchy. The thickness is a
Might
little
be too
bit
warm this time along the coast, and
We'll put a borderline right through the northern suburbs.
That ridge is... If you were to sit at home, flip the channels, and check the different weather reports, you would often find the same predictions. That's because everyone starts from the same base of information, the National Weather Service. That base of information is taken one step further in Minneapolis-St. Paul, where each of the top 3 stations has its own staff of meteorologists. It's a TV weather war fought with credentials and technology because weather here is serious business. Folks face 50 days a year of life-threatening conditions.
We can show off all of the gadgets and gadgets that we have and give the best forecast that's possible.
Those gadgets and gadgets make KSTP the biggest spender with $1 million in equipment, an investment that rivals had to counter. TV station KARE bought $500,000 worth and hired meteorologist Paul Douglas. But even here, for all the emphasis on science and technology, showbiz is part of the forecast. Douglas calls this the backyard.
The backyard is an attempt to have the weatherman out in the weather where he belongs, the weather he predicted or did not predict.
And it still helps to get lucky. This past summer, when a small tornado hit the northern suburbs, KARE saw it first. But it wasn't their investment paying off. The twister was spotted from their traffic helicopter.
We're about 3/4 of a mile from the actual touchdown at this time. This is really spectacular.
In fact, none of the local TV meteorologists saw the tornado on their radar. Why? It struck minutes before airtime, and no one was watching the scopes. So if the story behind the TV forecasts is communicating, part science, part interpretation, and a measure of luck, how do we decide which weather person is best? Well, experts tell us that it all comes down to this. The one you like is the one you trust.
Right now in New York, everyone, it's snowing. It's interesting, Hugh, as you point out, there was a time when it was almost all women. Then it seemed so frivolous to be doing the weather that women backed away, and the men who treat it more seriously, had the opportunity to, came in.
That's beginning to change now because there are good women meteorologists, and I think we're going to see a more even mix. Not right now, it's about 10% are women, but I think we're going to see more of them again.
They won't be called weather girls.
And they won't be weather girls. That's right. Thank you.
Thank you. That was fun. I think you're pretty enough to do.
Thank you.
Well, a very different subject now. Sex and AIDS, condoms and controversy.